I'm sure you had plenty of free advice from economists and others. In your experience, what do they do to messaging and how often are they right?
Well, in a budget context, usually they are right. But again, it's not about appealing to them and getting the purity of that policy. In the 2019 campaign, we took a policy into the election in that last week. We launched it at the official launch, and it was to allow young people to save for a deposit quicker for their first home. Not the most purest policy in the world, but it had a great effect. And we turned up to a building site every day of that last week of the campaign, and every day of that last week, our polling numbers went up. So it does affect change. I'm sure it annoys economists, I'm sure it annoys journalists, but it actually does work.
Right, so does Peter Dutton need to be spending more time in a hard hat?
In a hard hat, at a service station, whatever your choice is, just get out there and sell that message. They've got a pretty easy message to sell: lower petrol prices, lower power bills, lower taxes, and more Australians into homes. It's a pretty good message to sell, particularly in that last week.
I point him out because it's been a bad poll today, a couple of bad ones now for the Libs. It was unthinkable a few weeks ago that Labor could get in with majority government. We'll see what happens this time, but what seems to be resonating for them, or what isn't resonating for the coalition in your view?
Well, I think they're well short of majority at this stage, and the numbers kind of prove that. They're stuck at about 33% in terms of their primary, and that seems to be their ceiling. Resolve puts it at 32 today. So we've seen the coalition primary come off quite substantially. From November last year, it was 40. Now it sits about 35 on News Poll. But the vast majority of that support that's come off coalition has not gone to the Labor Party. They have failed to pick up that loss that the coalition experienced, and that loss is being sprayed everywhere. It's being sprayed on the left towards Teals and Independents that have bolstered their position. It's spraying to the right to Clive Palmer and One Nation. But Labor just aren't picking that up, so it doesn't give them the confidence heading in the last 3 weeks that they can get to majority government.
Yeah.
I think that there's a large proportion of people that flirted with the coalition and are still kind of trying to work out whether they see Peter Dutton as a leader. But I think generally where we're at the moment, there's a lot of people that are, they're angry and they're frustrated at Anthony Albanese, but that anger and frustration is not strong enough to overcome some of their concerns they have with Peter Dutton and the coalition.
Yeah, interesting. All good points. And just further to this, it's led to questions about eventual succession for Anthony Albanese, but maybe no place for Tanya Plibersek on the front bench, Andrew, with that awkward air kiss that we saw on the weekend. Have you got a thought on that and what you saw and what might be going on behind the scenes?
Well, it's world-class fakery, isn't it? You know, the fakey handshake, the air kiss. It's all a little bit unbecoming, isn't it? But it's real. And I know they like to go on breakfast TV and on your program as well and say that that all is well and we're all friends and, you know, we have neighbouring electorates. Well, guess who had neighbouring electorates in Sydney? Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott. Yeah, a little bit of water in between, but neighbouring. They didn't quite get on it either. So, look, let's just be real. They don't like each other. And they haven't liked each other for a long period of time, ever since Tanya Plibersek backed Bill Shorten in the leadership contest for the Labor Party. And, you know, and Anthony Albanese responded in kind by snatching away her education portfolio, which she loved. But it goes two ways as well. I mean, a lot of people like to point at Anthony Albanese about, you know, getting revenge. But, you know, Tanya Plibersek has been a thorn in Anthony Albanese's side as well for the last 3 years. You know, she tried to reintroduce the dead, buried and cremated nature positive reforms earlier this year, and Anthony Albanese had to embarrassingly knock it back and cop a rebuke from Western Australia in the process. If it was up to Tanya Plibersek, we wouldn't have a salmon industry in Tasmania. She was going to put restrictions on there that would lead to the industry in demise and the loss of 5,000 jobs. Anthony Albanese had to step in. And you've got the current situation in Western Australia where she's sitting on the approval of the Northwest Shelf gas project. And not just the extension of that project, just the extension of the current infrastructure. She's sitting on that and it's costing Anthony Albanese votes. So it takes two to tango.
It does. Andrew, good to chat again. We'll see you next week and see where things are at on week 4 of the campaign. Good to see you, though.